So this text study has 5 sources. I think we're all 4 to 5. I think we're only really going to get through 2. That's fine. A longer discussion can be booked by Rabbi Kligfeld later. And the meat of this study or discussion is going to be to try to answer the question, why does Devarim open the way that it does? And what I mean by that is, why does it specifically say these things? Or like these words? So as we all heard or read in our Chumashim, or we listened to Rabbi Kligfeld recite so beautifully during Mincha, the opening of Devarim is, these are the words which Moshe spoke to all of Israel. There's a lot more going on in the rest of this line, but we're going to focus on the first couple of words. And it comes back to that question of like, why do we have to specify these things? We know that when Moshe speaks, he's already speaking to the Israelites. We know that, he's been doing this for several books at this point, right? So why does, depending on your view, like why does the writer of Torah say specifically, these are the words? So, I don't know what your name is. Irv. So Irv just said that it's been a long period of time since Moshe last spoke to people, and this was his way of like kind of jogging their memories. That's a great point, and I will hopefully be able to touch upon that in the third source, or maybe we can circle to that. Does anybody else have a guess without looking at the source sheet? Or the sources on the source sheet. Does anybody else have a guess or a theory as to why why Devarim specifically says that these are the words which Moshe spoke? Remind me of your name? Bob. So Bob just asked, isn't Devarim a retelling of the first 4 books of Torah? Not quite. It's a retelling of Vayikra, because we have all of the laws that appear in Vayikra, but it is a repeat. The English word for Devarim is Deuteronomy, which is Latin for like second recitation of law, roughly. So, that could be also a reason why it's specifying. It's like we're repeating the same words again. Like Moses is specifically saying the same words again. Yes.
Could be that it's to make a point to say that the first 4 books were told by somebody else, and that this book is now going to be told. These words are specifically Moshe. So it's saying, maybe it's saying it's a different author or different speaker.
Can you tell me your name?
Rebecca.
Okay, so Rebecca just said that the first 4 books were spoken or written by someone else, but Devarim is exclusively being spoken by Moses. So maybe this is to highlight him as the sole speaker. That's great. These are all great guesses. There is no wrong answer to the question that I just asked, per the Jewish tradition. So great. Keep all of your guesses in mind. I'm finding them away in my databanks, and hopefully we'll be able to recall them as we go forward. So the first source that we are going to look at to answer that very base question of why is Rashi. And Rashi is like the penultimate commentator. He's a guy who had way too much time on his hands, which I cannot relate to. He was a Vinter based in France, who also, well, his day job was being a Vinter, but he's known for his commentary on the Talmud and also his commentary on Torah. His style is very much focusing on the Peshat, which is the simple, plain meaning of the text. So the question that is at the very top of this page, the very first question, why does Devarim open the way that it does? Rashi looks at that and just swings a stick at it and being like, here's the very basic answer that you're looking for. And he's a grammarian. His big thing is grammar, which I love. And he is focusing on Eleha Devarim, these are the words. And his explanation, as we can see, is because these words are a reproof. They are rebuking the Israelites and reminding them of all the times that they screwed up because they seem to not have very great memories. They do one thing and God gets mad, they repent, and then, a couple chapters later, maybe days, years, depending on how time works in Torah, then they do another thing and it makes God mad. It's like they never learned the lesson. And Devarim is trying to make it very clear, like, you got to learn your lesson, people. The next source is also Rashi. I have a thing for Rashi. That's something you should know about me. El Kol Israel, like all the words are spoken to all of Israel. This is an interesting one because it's, Torah, the Jews, Israel, like the assumption is that, all you're talking to is Israel, so why on earth would you have to specify this as well? And Rashi says, if Moses had only rebuked a few of the Israelites, then the people who weren't at the meeting would have been like, oh, well, we didn't hear what you told the other guys, so it's not our fault that we broke the rules. And Rashi's like, yeah, that's not an excuse. That's why Torah has to specify, like, everybody was here. And it reminds me of, like, having just been at camp. Everybody is told the rules at first, but you always have that one person who is late to the meeting, breaks a rule, and is like, well, I didn't know. In this case, lack of knowledge is not an excuse. You have to take responsibility for your actions. And Rashi is saying, Rashi is saying, as we can kind of see, that by saying all of Israel, even the person who was, at the street market or those were absent, would still be able to go to their next door neighbor and be like, hey, what was said at the meeting? Can you tell me what was said at the meeting? Or if the person who was at the meeting sees this other person doing something wrong, then they can be like, hey, this was what was said at the meeting. You really shouldn't do the thing.
There's a cuteness to what Rashi's saying, because lots of people will say, so if I was at the meeting, I would have said, I would have answered, I would have responded. There's an adage in politics. I was close to a man who was chief of staff to the President of the United States. And he said it was remarkable how many people told him something that they were about to tell the President and then would never tell the President. And he said he had to interpret for the President the things that nobody would dare say to him because all of a sudden they entered. So Rashi's saying, everybody's saying, if I was there, I would have known how to respond to Moses and the like. He said, Moses said this, Moshe said this to all of Israel, so nobody can say, I was not there.
Exactly.
And consequently, you all were at the meeting, you all had the opportunity to speak up, and you didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much the speak now or forever hold your peace. And this is Torah, you could say that this is Torah's way of saying, well, as soon as he starts speaking, you got your chance, you held your peace, and now you have to listen to this. You have to listen to him for a whole book of Torah. Cool. That was like, I've seen your face before, but I don't remember your name. No, the man next to you. Michael. Okay, I knew it was Michael. Awesome. Thank you for your commentary. That was delightful. Does anybody have questions or additional comments so far? Like, I'm happy to talk at people.
Why are we using using the word Devarim, why don't we say the word, the sayings, Ma'amarim, that these are the things that Moses said to the people? What's the difference between Omer and Midaber?
Can you spell that for me? Like,
Well,
like, maybe I'm not understanding the question completely. Sorry.
well, it's all right, because it says Ela Dvarim, these are the words, these are the things. Instead of Dvarim, one could have said Ela Ama'amarim, these are the sayings, the things that Moses said from Omer with Amar, things like that. But I always get them confused. Well, sometimes God says it's Midaber, and Moses spoke to the Midaber. Sometimes it's Omer. I've never understood it, but I shouldn't put you on the spot like that.
No, that's fine. So Amar is like say or tell, and Daber is speak. Like it's a much more forceful verb. And this is just my theory. I'm not a super grammarian yet. But if it was like, these are the sayings of Moses, it wouldn't have had as much weight as Moses saying, like, these are the exact specific things that Moses is saying. But that's just a theory that I have. What's up, Brian? So Brian just said that it could be like the usage of Devarim is setting the grounds for Aser Dibrot, and also kind of harkening back to the much more forceful nature of Daber versus Amar. Great. Cool. All right. So I have time. Okay, so we're going to jump into the third source. I'm not going to go through all of it because it's super long, but this source is Midrash Tanhuma. It was composed between 500 and 800 CE. It gets its name from Tanhuma bar Abba. He didn't write it, but a lot of the sayings are like attributed to him. So it's a midrash. It's like sermony commentary on various things in Torah. And so we are going to circle back to or what Irv brought up earlier about memory, because we're going to go through the first line of Midrash Tanhuma, which says, it's addressing like, these are the words that Moses spoke, and the Midrash is saying, well, Israel's reaction to that was, yesterday you said in Shemot that I am not a man of words, and now you're speaking so much. Like, these people are calling back to the memory of all the times that Moses was like, I'm not a good speaker. Like, why are you putting me on the spot? I can't speak for anything. Like, I've got a lisp. I'm not confident. I can't do X, Y, Z. And all of a sudden, now you're like in front of all these people giving the speech of your life. And that's why it says, these are the words, to reinforce that Moses was wrong when he said, oh, I can't do X, Y, and Z. I'm not a good speaker, because like, look at him now. He's giving all of these magnificent speeches. He's been giving magnificent speeches for at least 3 books of Torah now. But this is like the big one. The guy with the lisp, or like stutter, depending on how you interpret how the way that he describes the way that he speaks. The guy who repeatedly said like he was not the person for the job is now like doing the most incredible thing. And that would have been forgotten. Oops. Okay. That would have been forgotten, but the Midrash won't let that be forgotten. Torah won't let that be forgotten, and we as a people also won't let that be forgotten. And I think I'm out of time because the Zoom just reset itself. So, okay. Okay, cool. So that's that. Circling back to memory, I think it's addressing like it's almost turning the seemingly short memory that the Israelites have on its head, because this midrash is like calling back to a whole different book of Torah that happened many, many, many moons ago, and being like, we remember this one specific instance, so maybe our memories aren't as short as they've been in the past. And yeah, so any comments on that or questions or? Yeah, Seth. Yeah.
So, yeah, and thinking about these words that start with that, I wanted to make a lot out of the Kol Israel thing, and you could say that Kol Israel is not just Israel, Am Israel in front of Moshe at the time that he was speaking, but unbounded by time, people reading Torah and learning speech, but also something that Moses is not doing is, after all of this experience in the wilderness and all these difficulties with the Erev Rav and the Satsu, is that the word? I forget what the translation, but he's had some difficult subjects to manage, and he's speaking to them all collectively, not saying, you good guys who've been doing everything right, like, this is what you should do, and you troublemakers should do this. But in a way, it's kind of democratic, maybe, that he's kind of holding everyone to the same standard and saying that, just because, Joshua and Caleb have shown to be exceptionally noble Israelites, that you should just follow their example. I don't know, it's kind of putting some of the burden on maintaining the people on everyone, and also allowing people the opportunity to redeem themselves in their behavior if they've been kind of holding back and causing anger to Hashem. Yeah, I don't know, I could probably ramble on.
That's actually a really, I like your comment about the timelessness of it, and it reminds me of a midrash where, when the Ten Commandments were first given, it says all of Israel stood at the foot of Mount Sinai, but it wasn't just the people who were physically there; it was all Jews, past, present, and future. So if we take that midrash and like kind of transpose it to this part of Devarim, Al Kol Israel isn't just the people that were there that he was talking to. It's like the Jews of the past who made mistakes, the Jews at the time who are also making mistakes, but also the Jews of the future who are going to be making mistakes, and don't know that they're about to make a mistake, but they're getting like the baseline of what to do, and also like a preview, post view of all the things that went wrong, so they know not to do those specific things. They may screw up in other ways, but as long as they don't do these specific things, they're Gucci, or golden, as the kids say. So, yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this and could follow along. Take your source sheets home with you if you want and read through them. There's a lot of juicy stuff on these pages. So thank you for having me here with you tonight.